Perhaps we are in Eden still. It is only our eyes that have changed.
Where are you going?
In there?
What for?
I have some business.
What's the matter? Can't you admit what you're doing?
No, wait a minute here. You don't really want to go in there, do you?
Well, yes, actually I do.
But why? Why don't you tell us? Just share. Why do you want to go in there?
Why do you need to know?
Come on, admit it. Just admit it.
Okay, I admit it. I'm going in there to sign a contract because I bought a house.
A house? You're buying a house. Don't you know what you're doing? Don't you know what these builders are trying to do? The builders are draining the swamp.
The swamp?
Oh, that's right.
Don't you know that that swamp is the only habitat in 3 states for the gluttony slug?
The what?
The gluttony slug! Don't you know what they're doing? They're going to upset the ecological balance of Mother Earth. And why? Just to build a few houses. That's why. How can you even go in there? These builders are killers!
Builders are killers! Builders are killers!
How can you do it?
With all due respect to the slug, my husband and I also need a place to live. We need a new house because we're going to have a baby.
Baby. How irresponsible.
What is the proper attitude towards the earth? Before we answer that question, let's ask a bigger question. What is the proper attitude towards the universe? G.K. Chesterton says that we can only take a sample of the universe, and that sample, even if it be a handful of dust, will always assert the magic of itself and a hint of the magic of all things. The proper attitude towards the universe is astonishment. It is also the natural attitude. In fact, Chesterton says astonishment at the universe is not mysticism, but a transcendental common sense. Why are we astonished at the universe? Not because it's big. That's not a good enough reason. In fact, that's no reason at all. If something needs size in order to be significant, it means that it really isn't significant. The largeness of the universe doesn't even really mean anything because the universe is unique. There's no other universes to compare it to. It may seem large to us, but then so does an elephant seem large to us. But the reason we like elephants is not because they're large, but because they're cute. They have that irresistible elephantine appeal. They're slow and they're thoughtful and they can do interesting things with their noses. Chesterton says he likes the universe not because it's vast, but because it's cozy. It's just the right size. Chesterton finds that he's rather fond of the universe. When we're fond of something, we often address it in the diminutive. And there's a certain charm and sweetness and good humor in calling an elephant by the name of Tiny. And there's no reason why we cannot address this dear thing, the universe, in the diminutive. Chesterton says he's often done just that, and the universe didn't seem to mind. Science, says Chesterton, boasts of the distance of its stars, of the terrific remoteness of the things of which it has to speak. But poetry and religion always insist upon the proximity, the almost menacing closeness of the things with which they are concerned. It is the thing closest to us that is most mysterious.
We may scale the heavens and find new stars innumerable, but there is still the one star we have not found, that one on which we were born.
The earth is that strange, undiscovered star on which we were born. The earth, like the universe, can also be appreciated for its smallness. It can be loved because it's cozy. It's just the right size. And Chesterton says the way to love anything is to realize that it might be lost. That is how we should love this little thing, the earth. There is a term to describe loving what is small and fragile, the reverence for what is weak, caring about the things that cling in corners. The term is chivalry. Sounds romantic, but romance is the root of religion, says Chesterton, and the root of the word romance is Rome. And Chesterton says, the deepest reality of life is illustrated best in the old romance of chivalry.
Man is sent forth by an authority that is good, like King Arthur or a fairy godmother, into a world that is wonderful, that contains dangers and temptations, like dragons and wizards. He is sent upon a quest or trial. That is, he is judged by the same authority that sent him forth. That is the story at the heart of all healthy life and literature. And it is quite true that people who are healthy can sometimes act on it without arguing it out. But if they do argue it out, they will find it implies certain dogmas, as that there is a design, that it is a benevolent design, but that it does allow of free will and makes the good a matter of choice. There are those who think they can hold that healthy romance forever, merely by being healthy, and without holding any of the dogmas that justify it. But they are more and more finding out their mistake. When they are asked to state what they really do believe about life, they become desperately vague. And they have now reached the point where it is not only more and more difficult to state a creed, but even more and more difficult to tell a story.
While we're on this subject of chivalry and appreciating things in their smallness, rescuing wonderful things from terrible things, I really should take the opportunity to point out that this fits right in with Chesterton's social and economic ideas, known as distributism, and that among the small things that we should be protecting are family-owned businesses, and for that matter, families. I should take the opportunity to point this out, but I'm not going to. Instead, I'm going to come back to Earth. What should be our relationship with the Earth? What exactly should be our relationship with nature? This is a very important question, and most people, unfortunately, answer it wrong. And answering this question wrong is what throws the whole environmental movement out of whack. G.K. Chesterton, however, gives us the right answer to that question. He explains that nature is not our mother. Nature is our sister, because we both have the same father. We can be proud of her beauty, we can laugh at her and love her and watch out for her, but she has no authority over us.
To talk of the purpose of nature is to make a vain attempt to avoid being anthropomorphic, merely by being feminist. It is believing in a goddess because you are too skeptical to believe in a god.
This is why Chesterton maintains that what some of us call nature, the wiser of us call creation. Nature cannot have a purpose. Only creation can have a purpose. So, too, Chesterton argues that creation is a work of art, in which case there must be an artist. He also says it's a story, in which case there must be a storyteller. If the earth is just an accident, if nature is nothing but a drift, and a Darwinian drift at that, then we face one of two conclusions, neither of which is very savory. but both of which are already evident in the modern world. Human morality in a godless, mechanical universe leads to one of two extremes, either to a mindless humanitarianism or a heartless anti-humanitarianism. Either the natural world must absolutely dominate us and we serve it, or we must absolutely dominate the natural world and it merely serves us. In the one case, as Chesterton will reach the point where more and more we must keep our hands off everything, not ride horses, not pick flowers, not disturb the sleep of birds even by coughing.
The ultimate apotheosis would appear to be that of a man sitting quite still, not daring to stir for fear of disturbing a fly, nor to eat for fear of incommoding a microbe.
And under this scenario, he points out, there is no ability even to debate these things, because we also must not disturb a man's mind, even by argument. On the other hand, he says, we might unconsciously evolve along the opposite development, the one described by Nietzsche, where everything is used up for our pleasure, with Superman crushing Superman in one tower of tyrants until the universe is smashed up for fun. Here is Chesterton, over 100 years ago, predicting the two extremes that we see today in the environmental debate. One side going overboard, saying that the earth must not be touched, that any human action is a blemish on the beautiful skin of Mother Nature, that the natural world would be perfect if there were just no people in it. And the other side, sneering and snarling and singing, "Put another log on the fire." You know, that we can all have whatever we want, as much as we want, whenever we want it, for as long as we want it. Nature's a bottomless well, a bottomless oil well. Chesterton's solution to these two extremes sounds suspiciously like common sense. He suggests that maybe we should have some balance, proper proportion, or in his words, a certain amount of restraint and respect combined with a certain amount of energy and mastery.
If our life is ever really as beautiful as a fairy tale, we shall have to remember that all the beauty of a fairy tale lies in this, that the prince has a wonder which stops just short of being fear. If he is afraid of the giant, there is an end of him. But also, if he is not astonished at the giant, there is an end of the fairy tale. The whole point depends upon his being at once humble enough to wonder and haughty enough to defy. So our attitude to the giant of the world must not merely be increasing delicacy or increasing contempt. It must be one particular proportion of the two, which is exactly right. We must have in us enough reverence to all things outside us to make us tread fearfully on the grass. We must also have enough disdain for all things outside us to make us on occasion spit at the stars. Yet these two things, if we are to be good or happy, must be combined, not in any combination, but in one particular combination. The perfect happiness of men on the earth, if it ever comes, will not be a flat and solid thing like the satisfaction of animals. No, it will be an exact and perilous balance, like that of a desperate romance. Man must have just enough faith in himself to have adventures, and just enough doubt of himself to enjoy them.
100 years after Chesterton wrote these words, another writer came along who echoes Chesterton's thoughts exactly.
The believer recognizes the wonderful result of God's creative activity, which we may use responsibly to satisfy our legitimate needs, material or otherwise, while respecting the intrinsic balance of creation. If this vision is lost, we end up either considering nature an untouchable taboo or on the contrary, abusing it. Neither attitude is consonant with the Christian vision of nature as the fruit of God's creation.
Who wrote those words? Pope Benedict XVI in his encyclical Caritas in Veritate. The world doesn't understand the earth. The problem is not that we neglect science, but that we neglect God. The world doesn't understand the earth because the world has forgotten God.
The earth is not even earth without heaven, as a landscape is not a landscape without the sky. And in a universe without God, there is not enough room for man.
In a universe without God, there is not enough room for man. This is an amazing insight from Chesterton, and it explains one of the most baffling things about the environmental movement, which is its strange hatred of people, the idea that humans are the enemy of the earth and must be prevented from inhabiting it, especially those humans who are not quite yet born. Chesterton points out that everyone holding this philosophy ought really to apologize for being alive. Again, Pope Benedict's encyclical reflects Chesterton's ideas and addresses this strange inconsistency among the environmentalists.
If there is a lack of respect for the right to life and to a natural death, if human conception, gestation, and birth are made artificial, if human embryos are sacrificed to research, the conscience of society ends up losing the concept of human ecology, and along with it, that of environmental ecology. It is contradictory to insist that future generations respect the natural environment when our educational systems and laws do not help them to respect themselves.
This is why Chesterton could say very prophetically, among the cosmic creeds, Catholicism is the only one that is entirely on the side of life. The environmentalists are trying to restore paradise, but the problem is sin, which causes them to miss the point of what they are doing. The denial of sin leaves them with a very disturbing idea of morality.
A certain sort of humanitarianism, or horror of cruelty, is almost the only form of morality left among some of the modern moralists. There is scarcely anything else they will consent to call a sin, unless it be a sin against the hunted wolf or a crushed cockroach.
But Chesterton avoids the other extreme as well.
No, it is not that the world is rubbish and that we throw it away. It is exactly when the whole world of stars is a jewel, like the jewels we have lost, that we remember the price, and we look up in this dim thicket and see the price, which was the death of God.
Sin is the problem that destroys the earth. All creation groans under the fall. Chesterton, with his mystical vision, shows us that the earth, the stars, the whole universe, is a precious jewel that has been bought with a price, and that price is the death of God. And he says that the only way to return to the Garden of Eden is the way of the cross. In all his writings, in all of his debates, Chesterton is always trying to correct what he calls the stale trick of taking things for granted, because it is not even taking them for granted, it's taking them without gratitude, and that is emphatically not granted. The universe is not astonishing if we are not here to be astonished at it. It isn't any good for anything unless there's someone to appreciate it. We defile God's creation when we do not appreciate it, when we do not see that it is good, when we do not put things in their right order, when we listen to the snake. Sin has brought disorder into creation. sin has removed us from paradise. Chesterton says the point of the story of Satan is not that he revolted against being in hell, but that he revolted against being in heaven. And the point about Adam is not that he was discontented with the conditions of the earth, but that he was discontented with the conditions of the earthly paradise.
He who has gone back to the beginning and seen everything as quaint and new will always see things in their right order, the one depending on the other in degree of purpose and importance, the poker for the fire, and the fire for the man, and the man for the glory of God.
Our dependence is not on the earth. Our dependence is on God. We can thank God for the earth as we thank Him for all His good things. We take care of the earth not because we love the earth, but because we love God, who created the earth, and we love our neighbor who shares the earth with us. We work to make sure that the air is clean, that the waters are not polluted, because we love our neighbor, and that includes our neighbors who have not yet been born. I'm Dale Ahlquist. Please join us again for the Apostle of Common Sense, and please support the American Chesterton Society. Help us make common sense more common.